Hello, everybody. It's really nice to see you here. I don't know, have you heard about the thing called AI? Like, I haven't had any of these presentations I've seen here today that has not mentioned the thing called AI. It seems to be really everywhere. It's really nice to see. 5 years ago, I published a white paper about conversational digital government AI-driven services. And then I was like a lone voice in a very, usually sometimes empty room. But I'm really glad that we are actually heading there. Today's session is going to be rather brief, rather on point. We're going to be talking about how to do all this AI thing that you keep hearing about and how to actually implement this better in practice and what to do in the future so that you can be more ready for it. I'm representing GovStack today. GovStack is an international initiative that is focused on how you focused on specifications that can be implemented in various governments, various countries to kickstart their initiatives. But today, before we get to this, we start with a vision from Luukas, then we start with continue with implementation from Danylo, and then I will talk a little bit about preparedness, how to make sure that your systems are really ready for AI. But without further ado, I'll give it the stage to Luukas.
Thank you. So I have the pleasure of both being former Estonian government CIO, and I've worked with Kristo in the Estonian government, but now working with the other coolest digital government in the world, Ukraine. So I'm a colleague now of Danylo. So think of me as a bridge between the two speakers. I want to talk to you very briefly, first of all, about something that we're going to be launching today at 4 p.m. on a different stage, which is a vision paper that we've put together with contributions from about 25 really leading thinkers in digital government across the world, trying to sort of think through if the capabilities that agentic AI are going to be bringing to the market in the next couple of years really start working, and they will, what's this going to mean for government? So the full presentation of the paper you'll have at 4. Today I'm going to think through a very specific element, which is what's that going to mean for DPI? What's that going to mean for government's role in orchestrating a broader societal ecosystem? To really quickly, however, summarize the paper, there we go. What we've tried to do in the paper is go from the sort of broad keyword of AI and agents in government to really break that down in a more systematic way. And to talk about the different functions that governments actually engage in, providing public services, all the back-end workflows, policy making, setting up systems of compliance, managing crises, procuring things, engaging in buying, and asking for each of those, how is agentic AI actually going to change the nature of those functions? So this isn't about tech, this is actually about the business transformation that comes from the technological change. And so the paper, which you should definitely go read, kind of thinks through what are those transformations going to look like, what's already happening in the private sector that sets a precedent, what do we have to do to navigate the opportunities but also the risks, and then as a CIO or a CTO, what are the sort of enablement layers that you have to get right to make that possible? How do you deal with a very important question, which is governance of these agents, questions of accountability and redress, data, technology, security, finances, and of course, the cultural change. And by and large, though, we're real optimists. I mean, we think that in many ways, the capabilities that AI brings, that agents are going to bring, will allow governments to have a qualitative order of magnitude leap in their capabilities. And on the flip side, if they don't embrace this technology, we're going to see a continuation of this sort of slow decline in state capacity we've seen in many countries over the last couple of decades. But what to focus on for the next few minutes? All of this, the sort of adoption of AI and agents, both in government and society, also has some serious implications for how we think about digital public infrastructure. And I want to raise 3 considerations that we can then talk about. The first is government's role as a platform. It's not just a question of can we build tech to ourselves provide public services, but government has a platform function in allowing technology operated by the private sector in the hands of individuals to work well with public services to enable private sector services. And so in addition to governments thinking themselves, how are we deploying AI, how are we deploying agents in our own tools and infrastructure, one of the major things government has to be ready for is a society where everyone else wants to come toward government with AI agents. You know, why should I be going to a website when I can have my agent go and interact with the service? And there's a happy path, which is the government is prepared for that, and they've got the interoperability, so maybe you've got the government MCP server, and then my agent comes and talks to it. But there's also the unhappy path, which is government's undigitized, they've got the fax machine and the phone lines, and instead of people calling the phone lines and the fax machines, we're going to start having AI agents calling the phone lines and faxing the faxes on behalf of the people. But the problem is going to be that a call center that maybe got 1,000 calls before a day is suddenly going to have 100,000 agent calls. So it's going to bring government to its knees. And a similar sort of positive and negative scenario are easily envisionable when it comes to how enterprises, how companies interact with government, with compliance, with regulation. You know, we can imagine a positive scenario where governments are ready for this, and they actually enable compliance agents, where companies, you know, basically run an agent on all of their data, their enterprise resource platforms that ask, is the company compliant with environmental rules? Have they followed the tax rules? And if the answer is yes, it just turns out a green light, and all the regulator needs to know is this company's compliant, and you know they know it's a secure, audited piece of software that's done it, and if there's a yellow or a red light, they can act on that. Faster, more automatic reporting, but also more accurate reporting, and less data being leaked from enterprises to regulators. So wonderful happy path, but also again the unhappy path, which is, you know, we can imagine companies with lots of AI capabilities basically running circles around regulators, finding ways to engage in regulatory arbitrage and undermining the whole purposes for which we have things like environmental or financial or security regulations. So this is one thing government's going to have to figure out. As a platform, how does it interact with everyone else using agents? The other related question is, how is government with its digital infrastructure is going to be an enabler to society using agents in B2B and B2C use cases? And again, this is something where if we look at the existing world of DPI, we have the sort of the positive example in the world of identity. You know, digital identity, every country in the world that has a functioning national digital identity scheme, yes, the government has played a really important role in setting that up. And in some way, it's the regulator, the organizer, perhaps the anchor customer. But ultimately, they built an infrastructure that's a public infrastructure that's used broadly in society. So, you know, in Estonia, 20% of identity transactions are public sector, 80% are private sector. So identity is a very good example. In a world of agents running around and doing things, the existing identity infrastructure we have is super important. If you don't have digital identity figured out, you're in trouble. So all the countries that are starting to do it now, all I can say is keep at it. I hope that you guys get, first of all, your schemes in place and then widely adopted. But there's a whole new layer of complexity, because it's no longer enough to know I'm interacting with Kristo. If I'm interacting with Kristo's agent, I want to know, well, what kind of authority has Kristo delegated the agent? What kind of liability is Kristo willing to accept if the agent makes a mistake? And it gets even more complicated when you're interacting with companies. So maybe government has a role there in providing the registration, the infrastructure to, you know, have that metadata to enable people to interact with agents and the agents to interact with each other in these new complex automated workflows. Similarly, we all know that data is really fuel for AI, both for training AI systems but also for any kind of automation. We already know today that government plays a useful role as a data steward for society. Right? So again, in Estonia today, well-organized public-private combined data ecosystems allow things like energy markets and fairly efficient financial markets to work. The returns to having that figured out well are going to be 10 or 100-fold in the era of AI. And on the flip side, if you don't figure out data as a public infrastructure, you're going to fail at a societal level at a lot of your AI ambitions. And finally, and this is really the question I think for GovStack, what role or how are we going to manage these DPI in an international way? Which parts of these infrastructures are going to be purely national or purely commercial, or are going to be developed jointly in the way that X-Road is developed jointly by a number of countries, that you have a lot of international collaboration now in the EU's digital identity wallet? And I don't have an answer to offer here. I think this is a really important question. What I can say is that one of the sort of negative lessons from the last couple of decades of international cooperation in GovTech and digital government is that we've really, as governments, all kind of done things in our silos and gone and built it, and then like afterwards gone and realized, oh, the others are doing it too, and maybe we can share some experience. And I think we have the opportunity to build together, to write specifications together, to procure together in a much more collaborative way, much earlier on in this process. And so one of the goals of this initiative that we've put out, and Danylo is one of the contributors, and Kristo, while you're not mentioned as an author, I do want to say that a lot of the thinking really comes from the work that Kristo and one of our co-authors, Ott, have done on Estonia's AI strategy in the last 5 or 6 years. One of the ideas of this paper is to start that discussion and that kind of soft harmonization amongst the countries leading in this early on, so that we can start building together and acting together. And finally, just a quick plug. We've got the launch today. There's also a workshop tomorrow, Friday, 10:30, 5th floor. So if you're not doing anything tomorrow, Friday, at 10:30, come to the workshop where we're going to talk precisely about the collaborative element. And if not, we want to talk to you, which is to say the governments, but also the companies, the thinkers present here today, about how we do this all better together. And now enough for theory, because you're going to hear from Danylo, who's going to tell you about what an agentic state actually looks like.
Yep. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Luukas, for sharing a really great vision of agentic state. And you are right. I will try to share our experience, actually, how to implement agentic approach. And actually, AI state, it's not only the future, it's something. And currently in Ukraine, we are building in Ukraine today. So. But just briefly about our ministry, so I represent the ministry, and we established our ministry in 2019, and from this time we had a really great mission to create most convenient country for citizens and for businesses, and for this 6 years we undergone actually transformations that other countries can do for even 20 years, but we launched a lot of revolutionary projects like, our Ukrainian super app, DIA, which cover more than 23 million citizens, and also it looks like a face of modern and digital state. Actually, it's also about our super app in the field of education, Maria, and 2,000 schools are covered by that. And I can't mention our military and defense project because it's about our security. The project like Brave, Accelerator, and Ibale. And yeah, there are a couple of other different projects that we realized for that time. But now we move ahead, and the digital state was our previous step, and now we and the agentic state is the next one. It means the new operation model by the government when we anticipate the citizen needs, when we deliver services proactively, and when we try to do it more convenient for our citizens. And our mission now, let's say we since evolved our mission. So our mission is to rank among the top 3 countries worldwide in AI development and implementation in the public sector by the 2030. And it's not only about the ranking. It's about the state which is efficient, which is proactive, and which is serves citizens. So. I think, that's why we established our AI Center of Excellence. It's the main body which is responsible for the AI implementation in government and in the public sector. we actually did it in February this year, and we have our 3 priorities. First of all, 3 main pillars. First of all, it's creating national AI strategy. Also, we have a product track, and also it's about AI sovereignty. So let's dive a bit deeper in each pillar. First of all, we now are creating AI strategy, which is our compass and actually also our vision how to achieve our goals and in the track of AI development. And in this point, I want to actually to thank ISDEV and Digital Nation for support. That's why it's important. And the next important pillar is connected with AI sovereignty. So we are purchasing the top tier hardware to establish AI factory in Ukraine. It means it's not only about efficiency, it's or our strategic choice. It's about our security and it's about our surveillance. So it's very important in our condition of war, geopolitical pressure, to understand that we can control our data, models, and infrastructure. And the next important pillar of AI sovereignty is creating national large language model. So we want to, we actually do this with private sector, with a huge telecom company in Ukraine, and it's a really great cooperation. So yeah, it worked. And there are a couple of challenges that we want to solve in that case. First of all, it's about also about our security, because we can launch this model in on-premise mode by using the infrastructure that was previously mentioned. And also it's about understanding that sensitive data don't leave the country in some specific domains, and actually large language model with combining with AI infrastructure, it's the answer for that. And also it's about the cost efficiency. So we hope to bring this model to our businesses, and we understand that it will be cheaper than analogical models that we have on the market. And also it's a good point and foundation of development AI generally. But if we're talking about our product track, I want to say that our main application, DIA, now in progress of transformation to agent, to agent-based solution. So actually, we months ago we launched publicly this solution, and we launched DIA AI. DIA AI is the first national AI assistant actually in the world based on agentic approach. So what you can do by using the DIA AI, well, first of all, you can get some consultation in dialogue mode, how to interact with different services. But the most important things is that you can execute the services. The DIA delivers the services, and that's why it's agentic. It's a quick video and short demo how works DIA.
The world's first national AI assistant is here now in Ukraine. Skip the portal search, get it just one click. The AI analyzes your request and delivers a ready-to-use service or tells you exactly how to get it. 24/7 availability. Talks like a real person. Answers in seconds. One chat, 200+ services. It can help you start a business, get official documents, get married, renew your driver's license. All of this is in DIA. AI on the DIA portal. Just type, "I need an income certificate," and it's sent straight to your email and personal account. DIA AI, always here for you.
So, actually how it looks like. And you know what is the most important question when do you want to launch some solution on the scale for 4+ million citizens? It's the number one question is security. So we have principle, we have one non-negotiable principle. It's that we never never send the personal data to generative model. So it's very important. So we engineered our 4 steps processes, which we provide to us possibility to do that. So personal data of user is not transferred to the cloud and remains protected within the DIA perimeter. It's very important in that case. And on the next slide, you can see the, just a scheme of agentic infrastructure. So what is important that our solution is based on Python backend with fast API and also on LangGraph orchestrator, which analyzes which agent you need to use. And also we have an agentic layer which executes some actions. And what is important, we have guardrail in output and on input and output to prevent some unsafe content and malicious, for instance. And but DIA, it's not only one project that we want to show. Actually, we have a lot of examples of AI-based solution internally in our ministry. For an instance, we have AI in our support team, and 85% of requests are handled by AI. And we have AI in our legal stream. We created some legal report for 72 hours. Instead, it takes before a few weeks. And also, it's about AI in HR. We reduced 45% of time that we need from creating of CVs to closing some, to sending some offer to people that want, to persons that we want to hire. And also we will have AI in education in our Maria app. It's very important. It wouldn't be possible without policy ground. It means that now we have bottom-up approach, so we are moving towards the AI regulation, but we understand that we want to create some environment that is friendly and that is provide a lot of possibilities how for businesses to experiment AI, to provide a lot of POCs, and also it's about using responsible AI, and we have a list of key policy initiatives. We have our white paper. It's a policy actually document presenting Ukraine approach to AI regulation. Also, we have guidelines for responsible AI in the different fields like education, legal, IP rights, etc. So, in conclusion, I want to say that first of all, it's just a beginning. I also want to say that Ukraine are not catching up technologies, we are defining them. And this year shows that Ukraine can be, and Ukraine, first of all, Ukraine proof and can be among the top leaders in the world in AI field and innovation. Thank you. And I push the mic to the Kristo.
No, it's okay. I need this. Thank you. This is really fascinating. I love seeing the AI thing put into actual practice. I'm a very practical person, and this is actually why I wanted to have this talk, because like inspiring talks about, AI can do all sorts of magic, are really, really good. But what can you do in your organization, in your own government, in your own country? And this is something that I want to tell you a little bit about, and what you can take with you and implement perhaps already next week, and have your engineers start working on this. So this is just, me. I will skip this slide quickly. It just shows that I've done a lot of different things, and I'm very practical and hands-on. And I will have some examples in here, and I hope that nobody runs away from the audience too quickly. Take some of these things with you. But before I start, I will show you this. We are in an interesting era. Decades ago, we were standardizing infrastructure of the internet. It was like tests, everybody was trying different things out. There were no conferences like this that they were discussing how to do the internet thing. There were coffee corners and engineers trying various things out and various side projects happening. But now internet is really everywhere. And internet has been standardized. It's common. Nobody's trying to really reinvent how the internet protocol and whatnot works. It's being expanded, it's being polished, but it's not actually being fundamentally changed. And one of the great examples of this is that there are still typos in the internet protocol today that are implemented in your home routers that you're using every day. It's because it's so stable, it has sort of become its own thing that everybody shares. We are not trying to do these things differently. We are right now in the sort of middle level. We are about to sort of standardize or sort of end up realizing what is this cloud, what are the cloud platforms, what is Kubernetes, what is Docker. We sort of have figured it out. A handful of years ago, there was a lot of reinvention of the wheel. Now it's a polishing phase. So very soon, this also becomes rather sort of polished. And then on top of those things, what do you build on top of internet? What do you build on top of your servers infrastructure? You build applications. And I think that applications are the standardization phase, which we are slowly entering now. And I think that governments and public administration is the first to sort of enter this era, because in public administration, most governments share, I would say, 90% of the technical stuff that they could reuse instead of rebuilding from the beginning. This is why I like the example of Ukraine, that they did not start to sort of reinvent ChatGPT. They actually trialed out how it works for them, implementing it on Gemini's support, and seeing what is the actual value of the AI, and then figuring out which are the differences. How do we want to differ from what Gemini offers? And of course, GDPR, privacy, and things like this are in the forefront of this. But they started from the right end. They took the big thing that already existed and then figured out the differences. So, I'm representing today GovStack. GovStack is an international sort of initiative involving international various experts, not just from Estonia, but from various other countries as well. And we are developing specifications and principles that we think governments should share. So if you are starting to do something new, let's say you want to do data exchange in your government, then picking something from GovStack portfolio is the first thing to consider. Not to reinvent, but take something that already has proven to work and then configure it to your liking. And one of the important things that we published this year is GovStack's 2.0 strategy under a keyword that it's designed for AI, which means that if you start building your digital government services or transforming them this day and age, then you should already take into account various things that will be necessary to make those systems interoperable with AI. And in terms of the drivers for the specification, and I love how this is the same clicker that I believe that Steve Jobs really praised, that it never fails. It is failing at the moment. Can I ask someone in the back? Oh, okay, got the new slide in here. So basically the context and drivers for the strategy. Where that, of course, we are in the AI phase. Of course, we are in the conversational digital services phase. The idea of filling web forms is becoming outdated. In my head, it was already outdated 5 years ago. But I'm glad that we are sort of picking up on it. We don't want to fill those forms, and AI should help us fill them for us. And this is a really key. The second thing is obviously various regulations, privacy, things in Europe such as IDAS and GDPR. We need to take these things into account to make sure that whatever we're building is still compliant, allowing us to build trustworthy and secure digital services. And last but not least is obviously the shift towards more open standards, more shared stuff, rather than reinventing, which is what I mentioned in one of my earlier slides, that we are entering this sort of stabilization or starting the stabilization and standardization of digital government specifications themselves. Why? Because if we all build various similar services, population registries, digital identities, then it will be so much better if we have to do, like, let's say, cross-border collaboration, and those systems sort of look already very similar. Not look in visuals, because we all want to look visually very different, but in terms of their technology, in terms of their technical capabilities. Because if I then can trust another systems, their technical sort of, let's say, digital identity, then I can actually trust them in my own systems as well. Europe is struggling in this day and age. Europe is doing the Single Digital Gateway project, and it's very, very difficult to suddenly start to standardize and make all the member states very similar in areas that are very common, such as sharing diplomas, sharing identities, and so on and so forth. So we should really try to avoid these issues from happening, and there are some things that we can do, and AI gives us an opportunity to do this, to take these things into account. So as a result, we are entering into this AI-ready ecosystem, really. It's like we have an opportunity now, and your engineers will really like it, because they now have an excuse to tell you why we should do our old systems better, why we should migrate over, why we should refactor our older systems, because of AI gives them an actual excuse. What are the number one things that engineers tend to talk about in coffee corners? They say that, the code is confusing, I don't understand this. Documentation is missing. All those things, and at the manager level, it's like you realize that, okay, somebody didn't do their work, let's say, 5 to 10 years ago, but they're not there anymore either. So the only option is to start over again. But in this day and age, we do not just need to take into account that we will have new engineers coming in, but we also need to make these systems understood by AI. And that's like a potentially exponential value that we need to take into account. So if we made those mistakes in the past of not investing enough into quality of our documentation, then now we do not have any room to make this mistake again, because otherwise our systems will not be really ready and usable by AI. To give you some examples, and this is a homegrown example, hopefully it works, good. This is actually a documentation from Estonia's X-Road. Estonia is known to be very, very front runner in terms of data exchange and data quality and API specifications. We are highly ranked in the world in terms of our interoperability, and this is great. So this is a good example, but actually for AI, this is a horrible example. To try to figure out what this documentation is about, this is an X-Road sort of documentation for disabilities for parking. So if you sort of know what it is about, then you can sort of see some of those criteria, and I know the font is small, just making a point here, is that you can sort of figure it out, but it's not clear enough. It doesn't carry documentation, which means that if you actually give this to AI, then AI will likely misunderstand what the intent is. And as we all know, AI tries to please us always. So it will not tell you that, hey, I'm sorry, I cannot figure it out. It will tell you, yes, okay, I did it. And then you have no idea what the consequences are. So this causes various issues for AI systems. But when it comes to agentic state, then this is the one that the agentic state is going to communicate with. Systems like this that are described like this. In some cases, a lot of governments don't even have an open sort of API or open documentation for the AI to actually look at and understand. They maybe only can see what the API endpoints are. So this is a good example, and I would say it's not actually good enough of an example. So it causes like various issues to be pointed out in here. For one, it has multiple unrelated domains, the example that I showed before, mixed into one. This confuses AI. Having one single API that technically does multiple different things from different domains is going to be confusing for AI. Secondly, inputs are vague. There are no clear patterns and constraints, which means that AI needs to figure it out itself. It's not led by an example. Then responses mix success data and error fields. Again, how would AI know actually that something is wrong in the process that it did? How would it avoid a situation where it does something for the citizen and then ends up in a situation where actually in the back end nothing worked as intended, but AI thinks it did? Then of course everything being almost optional. This is a classic engineering mistake. Engineers do API endpoints, but they essentially leave everything open-ended. AI is very good at open-ended because AI is very good at language, but it will make mistakes if you give too loose options for AI to handle. The worst thing you can do is if one AI starts communicating loosely with another AI and then hope that they will be interoperable and are able to communicate with each other well. That's just not true. And of course, there are other things here as well, but the last point is very important, that in the specification there are no descriptions. Estonia commonly also publishes separate documentation for the APIs that we have as a separate document entirely. That sometimes helps. It means that, of course, for AI you need to feed in 2 separate documents. It's more complicated to do. Ideally, you would want this documentation to actually be inside a specification that teaches it and explains how this endpoint works. Otherwise, again, agentic things are not going to happen. Here is an example of documentation that is on the way there. It includes descriptions. It is more easily understood by a human who is looking at this. And it has clear sort of variables and limits and constraints and patterns for AI to follow. Because AI can really do 2 things well. Based on your experience, I'm sure that about 30–40% of you have already realized this. One thing is that it does language very well, and the other one is that it really does very well if you show it examples. It's the best that if you show it examples, it's going to be really, really good. And again, with your documentation, you need to make sure that your documentation is so clearly understood that this agentic system is able to understand how does this API endpoint actually work. The funny part is that AI readiness was already possible yesterday had we paid enough attention. Engineers have been focused on making sure that documentation is high level and APIs are written well and very clear and understood for years. For over 20 years I've been writing code. I remember when I was a junior engineer and they were already then talking about the documentation being a problem, the specifications being a problem. So what stopped us back then from actually making it happen? Not really sure, but what will definitely stop us going forward is that we can start using AI to validate the specification quality, our API endpoint quality, automatically, without waiting for someone to do code review. Maybe they are already overworked. So we would use AI to start doing these things, to validate, do you understand this specification? Do you understand how to make those requests? Because governments really don't like making mistakes. This is one of those things, and one of the biggest threats of implementing AI systems in general. So in here are a few things to take you with you. These are the things you can do today. You might have 0 AI systems. If you start developing a new system today, follow these principles, and these will help you be more ready for this agentic state, even if you don't have the agentic AI systems in place yet. And of course, it consists of things such as you must have APIs. And someone asked me earlier in the conference is that does Kristo say some things today that he has said for years before? Yes, it's that one. You must have APIs. I said this 20 years ago. I will continue to saying this until we actually have this everywhere. Then you need to have one purpose per API. It makes it very clear. Domain-driven design helps here. To make sure that you have very specific purpose APIs. Don't try to have one API for absolutely everything, because then APIs will have to be interpreted by AI and a lot of details get lost. Then you need to have explicit data models. You need to have clear errors with explanations. If a system says an error, then AI would need to understand what did they do wrong. It's not enough, it just says page not found. Because the problem isn't that they clicked on the wrong URL or tried to read the wrong URL. They might have done something wrong. They might have misinterpreted the URL wrong. So you have to be more clear in your error messages, in your interfaces. Then, of course, you need to have consistent documented naming happening in place, which means use similar terminology, use classifications. These are all very good things that if there is an analyst here that comes here and sees this list and doesn't know that we're talking about AI. They think that we're talking about documentation for IT systems. This is true. These are exactly the same things we need to focus on, because AI is going to do what a human is doing, and it's going to be limited by what a human is doing, except it's going to do it much, much faster. So when a human might make a mistake in 1 week's time, AI is going to make it immediately, and you need to really avoid this. And last but not least, examples built into the spec. I will tell you one more thing to answer in your head or pick with you when you go to work, is that do you understand your specifications? If an engineering team gives you their API or digital service APIs and you look at it without being an IT person, do you understand that specification? If not, you might have a problem. So this is what you have to really expect from your IT teams. We do not have the room or the luxury to have IT and IT-related documentation be so far apart from business people making the decisions, because AI is going to reflect on the same mistakes that we would were we suddenly responsible for those decisions and those systems. So in terms of GovStack, what we're doing is that we are having very specific targets for the agentic future as been represented here. We would be the first AI-ready digital government specification stack. We have a very clear goal to look at the GovStack specifications and the building block specifications that we have today and make sure that they do publish specifications, they do publish API endpoints that would be ready for this agentic state. So we are already working on this, and we will publish a framework for validating whether your systems are ready for this kind of agentic state in the future. And this is very, very important for us. So if you want to keep in touch with what we're doing, please do pay attention. Then we're also going to modernize the way we do our specifications, and we're going to do it in an object-oriented way. What this means is that we want GovStack specifications to be not just useful to you for thoughts or thinking or inspiration, but for you to actually implement in your government interoperability frameworks and your requirements documents directly. So this means that you can actually extend GovStack specifications in your own country. I did this collaboration with Estonia last year, but sadly we have shifts in management and shifts in CTO role. It hasn't happened yet, but one of my plans is to make sure that also GovStack specifications and their criteria for digital services would be implemented directly in a national interoperability framework. And of course, this is an opportunity to everybody here as well, because they have been developed unbiased as much as possible. Because we have international people that are actually contributing to the specification quality of GovStack and looking at exactly these things that we share, not which are not which keep us different. And last but not least, if you are responsible in a country for your country's digital stuff, then you can scan this QR code, answer a few questions, and it will actually suggest how GovStack today might already help you. And this is something that also actually runs on AI. So anyways, thank you. I'm out of time, and it was really glad to share these thoughts with you.